allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My normal speech, we're back again. If you have a cell phone, please either turn it off or put it on vibrate, please. Thank you. Okay, approval of treasurer warrants. We have payroll warrants for June 8th and June 15th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Can't vote, I'm sorry. 4-0. Accounts payable warrants for June 12th and June 19th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Approval of minutes for June 5th. Do we have any corrections, omissions? I didn't see anything.
Move the minutes as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. We have no special presentations or awards. We have a committee appointment. Pamela Logan, the Historical Preservation Commission. Catherine?
I make a motion to appoint Pamela Logan to the Historic Preservation Commission.
I'll second it. Any questions? All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank her for volunteering to do that.
Yes. We have no public hearing, so that puts us to the public comment section. At each regular selectman meeting, there will be time devoted to any resident or taxpayer of the town of Wiscasset to address the selectman regarding any item that is not on the agenda for that meeting. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. There will be a 30-minute maximum. Do we have any public comment?
And I think it's more of a question than a comment. Do we have any plans to clear the sand off Fort Hill Street by the post office? There's sand on the sidewalk. And if you're me with a whole bunch of packages to mail and hit that at a fairly dead run, it was a little mind-blowing.
We'll get a hold of the road commissioner and see if we can have that taken care of.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right here.
You're right here?
Yep.
Can you take care of that, Doug?
Sure.
Thank you
We
very
can
much.
take care of it.
All the way down that side of the street.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Cordelia Emig, Wiscasset Gallery. I just wanted to comment on when I was here at the TAC meeting a week ago, Jeff Lang's presentation. And I am concerned, a group of us, business owners downtown, were walking around downtown and counting up spaces. And it's, you know, if you look at what the DOT recommended just for customers coming to this, the first floor businesses in the immediate downtown, they said that we needed 92 spaces. And right now there's 35 unrestricted spaces, 7 of which are handicapped. And what wasn't taken into account was not only are there second floor businesses, but there's also probably, I went around and talked to people, we probably need around 30, possibly 40, because I didn't get any numbers from Sarah's, for employees that don't have any on-street, that don't have parking other than on-street parking. And also residents, there's 20 plus or minus apartments now downtown that have limited parking. So we're looking at between, you know, even if we took the employees and everybody parked down at Railroad Avenue, that would be that whole end of Railroad Avenue. So what I would like to do, and this is a heartfelt invitation, is I would really like to invite all of you just to walk around Wiscasset with us in the next few days, and just sort of, it's one thing to look at numbers or a map, but to actually walk these streets and be like, oh my God, where are people going to park? Excuse my French. So I don't know whether sometime this week, whether we could all just meet at like 9 in the morning and just do a little walk around town. We really appreciate it. I know Erica's Soul and Ann Scanlon and I would love to have you accompany us if you have a chance.
Thank you. What is the board's preference?
I'm still in school, so 9 o'clock might work for me. That's what
I can do earlier. We can do early.
At 6:30.
We could, but when you get out of school.
The last day of school for teachers is July 26th, or June 26th. June 26th, so next Tuesday.
Okay.
So after that, I think.
But we do have the PAC committee that's going to be bringing the parking to us eventually, I believe. Bill?
It's all done.
It's all done. Is it going to be presented, when is it going to be presented to the board?
We presented it to you some time ago. The chief has other parking, that might be what they're talking about.
Okay.
And then that's something the chief brings to you, that we've listened to it, but we can't act on it because it's a selectman's, it's not part of the DOT plan. It's while DOT, well, Chief can probably explain it better, but while DOT was in session, he wanted to look at the same time where we've got illegal parking and looking at places where we've got restricted parking. But we didn't vote on that at all. We sent that to you people.
Okay, so we've got two different parking scenarios, is that correct?
That's
Is that what I'm
correct.
hearing?
Yep.
We've got one from MDOT, from the PAC, and one from the chief, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
They don't overlap.
correct. There is, MDOT went a little bit very forceful, and we went a little bit more conservative, where their lines we're trying to add more parking to that location, which is on that map right there.
Okay,
MDOT's slightly different, that's the one that's in the hallway there.
I'm getting confused. I think you better.
Before we go too far, I have had several calls about the parking, and I did assure folks that when it was an agenda item, I would be sure that it was advertised and they were notified. So I would like to ask the board if we want to make this an agenda item, if we could do it for your next meeting so that I can honor what I said to those individuals about being present to discuss the parking.
Because I'd like to be able to see both of them. If we're discussing two, I'd like to see both of them. Yours compared to MDOT's. If you're saying yours is a little bit more lenient than MDOT, is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay.
Does it make any sense for us to discuss what we want to do until the state has decided?
The question is, the parking from MDOT, the PAC committee, that is what the state is suggesting, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's what we're going to have when the state gets done with the downtown project.
That's correct.
After they leave, and if we want to make changes, that's on the town,
Right.
and that's what that is
That's
for.
what yours is.
Correct.
Is there a way to do it all at once instead of doing it?
Well, the
Twice.
fact is, MDOT will not make those lines if it's illegal. They will not paint those lines if it's illegal, such as too close to the crosswalk.
And I know which one you're talking the one by
All
the
of them.
code. Well, yeah,
Yes.
there's a few of them that are
Correct.
close to it. And yes, I can agree with eliminating that or maybe making different sizes, leaving space. But I'm not in agreement to taking all the parking on the street side of the streets either, because we are gonna need it.
I was just gonna ask you again, is there, we could do Saturdays too, although I know I used to be a school teacher, and if you wanna get up on Saturday morning, it would take half an hour, so.
Catherine?
I'd be willing to certainly meet with them, which
Okay.
I'd love to know all of you comments, I think it's important to see, it wouldn't take up that much time.
So it would be whatever the rest of the board.
When would you want to do it?
Well, it would then become a meeting.
And you have to post it,
Right.
and it's open to the public.
Yes, Chief?
I'm willing to go down with you guys to explain to you what the laws are while we're walking. We can do this after you are done with school as well.
And I would want to see all of the plans and have some time to read the materials and study the maps prior to that, so that I went in with more information and going in cold.
But I think it's important, and I honor the legal part of it, but I also feel like as a town, what are we gonna do? You know, it's really, this is, there's no parking. But anyway, thank you so much.
I think we need better answers. I've been looking around at some communities, there are communities around who don't have 25 feet away from their crosswalks. And we need to fight for every foot that we can get.
I think we need to sit down and we need to look at both of them as far as I'm concerned, and see what we're talking about before any decision is made. I mean, we're the ones who are going to have to make the decision. Am I correct? The decision is up to the board. And I think we both have to look at what the chief says and what the PAC committee says, and look at both of them.
Could we get somebody from the state to walk around with us and say, this is where the line is going to be?
I don't know.
We certainly could.
We could ask, we could invite them.
I have their map to bring.
And I'm more than willing to do it. I just think it's going to be an exercise in frustration in the long run.
Right.
I have another question, and this is at the end of the agenda. We have correspondences, and so I was going to ask about the letter from MDOT in the fourth paragraph, line 2. It says, as you know, Maine MDOT's planned demolition of the building at 36 Water Street in preparation for new public parking was halted at the request of the town in the lawsuit. And that's all it says. Is now that the lawsuit has been stopped, are we going to go back and revisit that parking lot?
That is up to MDOT, not the town of Wiscasset. That is on.
Maybe talk about that again, because we will need that parking.
That has been relayed to the state, that the Board of Selectmen would like them to reconsider Water Street. And you've got a response from the state.
And remember that we had talked about sending a letter to which the board would sign, and we intentionally were waiting until after the election so that we would know who the parties were that were on the board. So that is in discussion. No promises have been made from MDOT. And also in reference to that letter that Kim's referring to, the very last paragraph talks about MDOT's authority to alter parking on side streets. And then quote the statute. So
That's why it would be good to have them there, rather than us say we want this and them to come back a month later and say, no, you can't.
you know, if I might make a suggestion, it might be helpful to have a brief meeting here first with the maps to take a look at what the proposal is, so that then when you walk down the street, it makes a little more sense to you. It's difficult to carry something that size around when you're walking, but we certainly could set the tables up lengthwise with both plans, and certainly invite everyone to come and just have a workshop, and then you move on to the downtown, if that's helpful to you, to look at the plans in advance.
Right.
I would suggest there's nothing before the board to make any changes at this time. There's no proposal has been given to you, and so I know that you're away on vacation, and I would propose that we try to make a date and schedule it before the second meeting in July. Maybe meet the week before then, so that at your agenda on the 17th you could discuss it if you so choose.
I just wanted to point out that they could be coming down Main Street with construction and then, in August. So if we keep pushing a meeting or a walk too far into July, it could be too late. But
I think the town manager has a good suggestion. Let's meet in July, Tuesday in July?
Well,
The
the chief covered up my calendar, so
Okay.
I can't.
12th,
Okay.
Tuesday.
The 12th?
The 12th is the
12th is the week before
The week before our
your
17th.
19th meeting. I'm sorry, I was looking at, I'm sorry, excuse me. You have a meeting on the 17th,
Yes.
Yes.
it'd be the 10th.
We have a meeting on the 3rd, correct?
Then you may move to the 10th.
That what I would like to propose that we move to the 10th later on in the meeting. But we don't necessarily have to do it on a Tuesday, we could do it on a Thursday.
I can't do it on Thursday the 12th. That's what the Thursday you're thinking of.
Okay.
I could do Thursday the 5th, Tuesday the 3rd,
I
or
won't be
Tuesday the
here on the
10th.
5th.
What about Wednesday that week? Does anybody have a commitment for Wednesday that
Is that
week?
July 11th?
Yeah.
July
I
11th.
do.
Okay, so, if July 10th works, earlier in the day, is that a possibility? Maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock before your regular meeting, is that a possibility? Where everybody has that time scheduled?
I could do it earlier in the day, yeah.
Does that work, Cordelia, for you folks?
So what was the date again?
I'm suggesting the 10th, maybe around 3:30.
We can meet here at the town office and look at the maps, study them, and get it out to the newspapers if we're gonna be doing this.
And then are we going for a walk at the same time?
Yes, then we'll be going for the walk. Yes, Chief?
During this walk, maybe we can get with the road commissioner, see if he has vests like we did last time. 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon is gonna
Yes,
be
it's
extremely
gonna be
busy.
busy, yes. Okay. Doug, do you think you can get us some vests?
I'll have to purchase some
Get some
vests for what?
Reflective vests for safety. If you're gonna be walking around downtown with all the traffic and going across the streets, like we did last time, I don't know, I can't remember if we were there.
I wasn't there, but I mean, I never worn a vest downtown. I'm not gonna
I
try.
understand that. Listen, I'm here for safety, sir. If you don't want to, that's fine.
Okay,
I
like,
have my own.
We can all wear Hunter's orange.
There you go.
So
Okay.
July 10th at 3:30 works for everyone?
Yes,
probably the busier it is, the better.
at 3:30. So we'll meet here.
Okay.
Judy?
Yes, who's after me? Yes, Susan, I'm
Me.
sorry.
Just to clarify something in my mind, if you guys are walking down the street, you are holding a meeting. So you will be starting the meeting at 3:30
Yes, we will.
and then move everybody down. Thank you, just
Yes, we will,
want to
ma'am.
make sure that I knew what was going on.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, so I had no idea we were going here tonight. First of all, in the discussion about the two plans, I recall at a PAC meeting that Bob Blagden turned to Ernie Martin and said, does striping come at the end? Is this something that will be discussed in terms of the side street parking later in the process? And Ernie pretty much said, yeah, it's not something like that they're going, so that was my impression, that's what I heard. I also got the impression that the MDOT plan was just what was on the contract that they put out to bid. And he seemed, when Ernie was speaking about parking, it sounded as if he was saying, well, yeah, there's leeway in there for changes. Granted, within the law, whatever those laws may be. So that was my understanding. The other thing is, I wasn't aware that the PAC had already presented this to the board.
I think informally, you haven't addressed any parking at all formally. There's been nothing formal.
So, but did I
It's
just
addressed at
hear?
most meetings. It was changed several times after public meetings and citizens' comments.
But do we have a,
Right.
does the PAC have a layout, a drawing?
It's right
This is
there,
it.
but have you presented this to the select board? Did I miss a meeting?
Not this plan.
I guess not.
Okay, so so.
Now,
that-
this one here, who is this one? Is this the chief's or is this?
Chiefs.
The one just like it in the hall is
Okay,
MDOT's.
okay.
Well, the parking spaces on MDOTs are different. The recommendations for where parking spaces should be and be removed are different.
That's why we have to
on
look at
MDOTs.
both
Yes.
of them.
So when you have the meeting to discuss parking, I have spent considerable time looking at the parking, both this one and the MDOT map, and I have suggestions as well, and I'm hoping that you would include me on any agenda that you have and give you a third option. I can provide a map as well.
Well, I think when it comes to the parking, we will be having an open meeting and everyone in town can be invited as far as
That's
I'm
great.
concerned.
So you will be open to taking a look at the map that I put together and those suggestions as well?
That will be up to the board if they choose to want to look at it, that is fine.
I'd be glad to look at it.
I certainly would be.
Me too.
That's fine.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes.
How are we doing notifying the governor, trying to get a meeting?
Are we still in public comment?
Yes.
We've sent the letter.
Okay.
The letter has gone? Yes.
I would ask that you would amend that or notify the governor's office of when we are going to take this walk and invite him.
Okay.
This
Sounds
belongs to
good.
him in the end, and I think he should know what's going on.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience? Oh, my goodness.
I'll just stay here because I'm sort of.
Please stand up and state your name.
My name is John Reinhardt. I live over on 26 Lee Street, and that has been a speedway during the summer months. Last year, we got some speed bumps, and I was wondering when we were going to put those back in. And I would suggest that we do it because we have children in that corridor, and people want to get around, and they will make that right turn. Right now, there's a house being built there, and there's mud in the streets, and there's a lot of trucks, so obviously they have to slow down. But I would prefer to do it now and deal with basic safety rather than wait for somebody to be hurt.
Thank you, John. Doug, is that something that the town crew can handle? Doug,
Pardon me?
is that something that the town crew can handle? Putting out,
Under direction, sure.
please put
I
us.
suggest that we get different speed bumps.
Yes.
Okay,
And speed bumps average about $1,000 or more per speed bump. And a tabletop, which would be more permanent, would be about $3 grand each. So,
okay.
the speed bumps that were installed last year are typical of a parking lot, not recommended for roadways.
Okay. Mary, you had something to say?
We also reached out to MMA, and I think I shared the correspondence with the chief. Maine Municipal and our insurance company recommends an ordinance be enacted, and we were working on that also, as to how and when and all of that. I don't have that material with me this evening, but we have been doing some research on it also.
Yes, Chief.
Just like John said, Lee Street is one street that I've been getting constant complaints on. Hooper is another. Hooper and Lee are constant cut-throughs for individuals, and I get a lot of complaints from there and Lee. So something is going to have to be looked at for more permanent bumps
Okay.
for both streets.
Okay. Pam?
On that note, if they can, I know that on Lee Street, we had 2 speed bumps last year from Lee up to Route 1, but you need them from Bradbury down to, I believe, Pleasant, where the stop sign is, because people run that stop sign all the time. And on that note, I know that last time I brought up the fact that people are coming up Fort Hill Street because they can't see the do not enter sign. Again, today, 3 people up Fort Hill Street. I just don't want, I'd like to have an accident prevented since I brought this up twice now. I see it 3 times a day, people coming up Fort Hill Street, somebody's gonna get hit. It's only a matter of time.
Okay. So what are we doing about, the check on, is it doing an enter sign on Fort Hill?
There is a sign down below, but we'll put up some more.
Okay.
Make it a little bit more prominent.
All right,
maybe like a no right turn coming from the waterfront.
all right, that sounds good. And now the speed bumps, what are we gonna need an ordinance, did you say? Is there anything that they can do temporarily right now?
The recommendation from Maine Municipal was to have an ordinance. It wasn't a must, it was a recommendation. Doug?
Yeah.
Glad you came tonight, thanks for joining us. So the Lee Street, from Bradbury down to Pleasant, so that would be adding 4 speed bumps, Mike?
I would think that would be a minimum
So, and you're saying $3,000 a piece?
for the humps.
Can we get
Like
used
a
ones?
tabletop, which could be permanently plowed over.
So, and then Hooper Street,
Hooper
Is
Street, I
2?
bet you'd want 3 or 4.
so 4 for there, 4 Bradbury down to Pleasant and Lee
If you
Street.
don't have them spaced properly and as much of a nuisance as you can stand, people are going to accelerate in between them. They're also going to, especially as we saw on Lee Street, when we had them last
Go
year,
around them.
go around them on private property, onto the sidewalk. So I'm not sure if, speed bumps are really the true solution, especially for the cost. Maybe we could get a cruiser parked down there, something.
Chief.
We don't make many of them.
Sorry to pass it on, Chief.
We've been, yeah, thanks. Instead of putting a speed bump as you go down the hill, putting a sign may help stop ahead. It's a lot cheaper than putting in speed bumps as you go down the hill. A warning at the top, stop ahead. And I believe, Doug, was that stop sign changed to a larger stop sign already?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
It was a smaller stop sign, it wasn't state regulated, they had to make it larger.
Okay. Bigger stop sign.
Doug, I'll see you tomorrow for a road trip, how's that?
Sounds great.
Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Okay. I'm Lori John.
You're gonna have to come up here, we can't hear you, and say your name, please.
On the parking issue, just a quick note. I'm Lori John from Michael John Antiques in Middle Street. I know this is, I haven't decided. I just want to throw this in. The parking space in our driveway shop, if they're blocking the driveway, you can't drive in and stuff that, the chief, Lisa actually said it should be removed by law, right? It should have angled driveway. So I don't see that on that map. That's one thing I want to put up before the decision make. I try to go to the walk, but if in case that I want to have that noted too. The driveway. It's
The lines are all the way to the driveway, so it's not 10 feet, which is by law, it has to be 10 feet from the driveway, the parking spaces.
right now, just
It goes right up to it.
through.
Bob?
I just wanted to tell you why that's like that.
Yeah.
The previous owner of the property,
Yeah.
Terry Lewis, he could be a little eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked us to paint a parking place in there because he said, well, I don't use it very often, so, it's just okay. So I can understand why it has been done year after year after year.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly think that it would be very simple to correct it and make it like it was before. But that's the reason why it's been done like that, is because a number of years ago, he asked to have it done that way, and we just did it that way, and I'm sure that the lines get painted in the same place.
Yeah, we don't really mind unless this parking became permanent parking issue. We have to move car every couple hours. We want to be able to park in the driveway when this parking.
Right, but it's certainly your driveway, and you should have access to it.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pam?
I just had a suggestion for the speed bumps and the signs and everything on Bradbury Lee Street and everything. I don't know how complicated it is, but since we have the free sign from the MDOT that's up by the high school, since it won't be being used really during the summertime, can we just move it over there?
On the speed sign.
That's one plan for that sign. There's lots of streets that sign is gonna be moved to.
Okay.
There is a plan throughout the summer on what streets that's gonna be placed on.
Okay, thank you.
And Lee Street and Hooper Street is one.
Kim?
On the same topic, I know that there's a reluctance to sort of set up a speed cap and give tickets partially because the town doesn't benefit from doing that, other than, of course, discouraging speeders. But I'm wondering, and maybe Marion would know, the last state I lived in, towns did not receive monies from such tickets, but there was, some towns were able to if they voted in an extra charge. So the regular amount went to the state, but you got walloped with another amount that went to the local municipality. I don't know if Maine has that, but it might be worth checking.
It's a great idea.
Thank you. Okay, let us go on. We're done with public comment. It's like it's been a half hour. Okay, department head or committee chair. Department head monthly reports. Does anybody have any comments or questions regarding? Yes, Pam.
I just wanted to applaud Lisa Thompson's and the community center's membership and revenue numbers. I saw that they beat their membership goal, and they had a goal of selling 50 new memberships, and they did that, and so now they've raised the goal to 100 new memberships. And they're currently $21,082 over last year's revenue at the same time. So thank you very much, Lisa. We appreciate that.
Very good job. Any other comments?
Oh, I have one other comment.
Okay.
To the EMS report, I will volunteer to sit in the dunk tank on the 4th of July.
Wonderful. 3-hour slot?
I can't do 3 hours.
You better hope it's hot that day.
Right.
Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you.
Dunk tanks are a lot of fun.
Okay, we have the Conservation Commission request permission to apply for fiscal year 19 shore and harbor grant. I believe Phil DeVries.
Yes. Coming with me, Ann? Come on.
Sure. Stand by you for more support.
And I've got visuals.
You got visuals this time?
In color.
Okay.
Now, if I can slip by you, Robert, just for a moment.
Boy, he's brought the tools.
I did, I've gotten, I could have probably, gotten a projector and done it that way, but, I was a little worried about using too much time.
We could have set that up for you.
Yep.
You called ahead, sure. Happy to do that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Just to say at the outset, I wanted to thank Marion for your time. Marion sat down with me on 2 different occasions, and we discussed White's Island and some of the needs that were out there. And Marion also somehow came up with the file on White's Island, which I'm not exaggerating, is about 3 inches thick, which we went through. And I should start and say that this started when Ann and I and the other conservation commissioners met for a brief meeting not too long ago, and the subject of White's Island had come up. And I don't know if you were aware of this, but both footbridges have now had portions that have collapsed, which is creating a really unsafe condition. It also came to our attention from the yacht club that there were people that were observed attempting to cross the bridges, which is a very unsafe situation. What concerns us, I think, now with school letting out today, there's going to be more, youngsters down at the waterfront. And we're really worried about somebody attempting to cross those bridges, and also the fact that pieces of the bridges could break off and become a hazard to boaters, commercial boaters or recreational boaters. So anyway, to make a long story short, Mrs. DeVise and I kayaked out to the bridge just this past Sunday. And that's currently the only way you can get out there.
You can swim.
And you can swim, that's true.
Go ahead.
So, we have the White's Island folder. And I thought maybe I would just put this on the slideshow, if that's all right. And if I turn it this way and put it back here, can you all see it, the selectmen?
I can.
You know, does that work for everybody? Oh, sorry, Robert. Just leave that obsolete. So, I requested to be on the board's agenda. By the way, I'm Phil DeVise, I live on Langdon Road. I am a former selectman. To ask the ask permission from the board that we address this and perhaps look into some funding options. Specifically, we need to address those 2 footbridges. Ann Leslie and I met, I think it's 2 Fridays ago, with Steve Walker of Maine Coast Heritage Trust over in their office in Topsom. And if you recall, when we had our town planner, not too long ago, when we accepted the gift of White's Island from Maine Coast Heritage Trust, Steve had offered to assist in applying for some grant monies to address the footbridges. Now, that funding option is still available, but in order to be eligible for 2019 consideration, there's a pending deadline of July 27th. Now that deadline is for a required site inspection. Site inspection is part of the pre-application process. So you have to have the inspection before you can proceed with the application. So someone comes down from the state and they look over the bridges and they try to determine whether or not there's a need. So if our project request is deemed eligible, the grant needs to be completed and filed by this coming fall. And we're not quite sure. Ann thinks it's November. I thought I read where it was September.
Maybe 2 different grants though, too.
It could be. Something to keep in mind too, this is a match grant. Now the grant is up to $300,000. Now it's a matching grant, so you know what our match would be, the same amount. Now the town of Woolwich, they recently applied, if you're familiar with Wiscasset Park, to make the Wiscasset Park ADA accessible. They received $15,000 from the state, the same grant, and they also raised $15,000, so they're working with $30,000. And that's going to make the swimming area ADA accessible. So what we're really talking about here is what I would say would probably be a 2 or even 3-phase project if we're talking about the footbridges alone. Phase 1 obviously is going to be removal of the existing bridges. They would have to be taken down and that area would have to be cleaned up. Along with that, if you're talking about putting in new bridges, we would really have to think about monies for engineering and the design phase. So you know what you want to put down there. As those pictures are cycling through, the last 2 pictures are of a bridge in Topsom. The bridge is an aluminum bridge. It's welded aluminum. It's a 60-foot span. There's no timbers involved. There's no wood. I mean, you can imagine that. I mean, we wouldn't be replacing it every 30 years. Because we put timber and wood back in, what's going to happen? In the future, you're going to be right back here, talking about replacing those bridges. Now, another thing you have to consider, and this is a big consideration. The town you might just choose to remove those bridges and let the island revert back to its natural state. You can get to the island now. I mean, we kayak out there, you can canoe out there. As Ben suggested, you could even swim out there. And it is a nice little island. So that's something to consider as well. But the footbridges really need to be addressed. As you can see from the photographs, as they cycle through, they reach a condition now similar to what the former schooners, the Hesper and Luther Little, had degraded to. They're really presenting, I think, a danger if parts of those bridges, timbers, or part of the decking were to fall off and then float out into the river. Then they become a hazard for, commercial or recreational boaters. So if you would like to try to pursue this, what I'm asking for tonight, given the deadline, is to either appoint myself or another member of the Conservation Commission, along with one of you or a former selectman, to pursue this application process. Now, the application itself, when I downloaded it, it's 16 pages, and it does require a little time to fill this out. Now, Steve Walker has offered to go through it with us and help us along, but we've got to provide the information. That's our responsibility, and we also have to then submit it. Now, I printed off a lot of the information. It basically gives you a sample of the letter you would send along with the application, and also what's required from the DEP, which is part of the application. So I thought I would toss this out in hopes that if you want to move forward, I'm sure I or Ann would be willing to put in our time. If one of you would like to help and meet with Steve Walker, we can get the ball rolling on this. But we really have to get that inspection scheduled if we want to have him come down by July 27th.
Okay, what is the cost of the inspection?
There is no cost.
There's no cost, okay.
To my knowledge, I don't know of any cost.
And I just add that, and Phil and I haven't had a chance to talk since we've both been studying this document, but it looks to me like we have to make a request for the inspection by July 27th. And when you click on the online request form, two things they ask for are an estimated cost for the project and what the town might ask for as a grant. So there will have to be some delineation of what we're going to try to do first, and perhaps getting some more numbers, budget numbers, to give. It's not a binding statement that you make, but they're asking for ballpark.
The only thing we had for numbers, as Mary, you'll recall, was the OS engineering report, which was done, I think, in 2009, if my memory serves me right.
And we also had the estimate from our Chesterfield Associates that he provided when we asked him. He estimated approximately $300 a foot, remember?
Yes.
That was real recent.
Yes, Toby?
As an EMA perspective, I believe that we did get a rough estimate to replace the bridge, and it came back into the 400,000s. Also, just to go along with this, Phil, that is a huge flood area for the bridges. So when we decide, from the recommendations of FEMA, if we do decide to fix the bridges, that we really got to consider the flood areas of the bridges and either develop something differently, but did not come highly recommended to continue with the same type of bridge that we currently have based on FEMA's recommendations. So there is other components that go with this bridge due to the flood zones that are in the area.
Yes, Ken?
So if the select board got behind this and you guys went ahead and applied for the site inspection and started developing a grant, we're talking about submitting that grant in fall of 18. And then if it's a matching grant, we would need to include funds for the project in our 2018-19 budget.
19-18-20. 19-20 budget. We've already done 18-19.
Yeah, the next year.
And
why isn't it still like 2010? Sorry. Yes.
It would really depend on, one, whether or not they accept the application.
Right.
And then remember, you're competing against, I think last year, or 20 other towns. So you have to make the case why it's needed here.
Do we have that flexibility for a project start date? Because I don't think we don't have matching funds in the budget currently. So would you be able to plan it for the next year?
Good question. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a necessity.
And I have one other question. I don't know where I got this idea somewhere last year. Could be totally off base. Didn't Midcoast Conservancy want to help with White's Island at one time or another? Do we know anything about that?
The only conversation I had with Midcoast Conservancy is they wanted to acquire the easement from Maine Coast Heritage Trust, and we decided that Maine Coast Heritage Trust had expended the funds and worked on the easement, and we were content with it remaining there.
So I wonder if they are interested in the project and we decide to pursue a grant, maybe we could partner up with, it's just a thought, but you know, more people makes for better
I can
thinking.
talk to them again. Actually, they had offered the Conservation Commission to help. But once they moved, they said that, you know, their focus was sort of readjusted. So I will approach them again, but that was an unfortunate loss. But maybe they'll still be able to.
Not that far away.
Yes, Catherine.
Well, I was gonna ask Phil if the possibility of Lincoln County planning. I mean, they do a lot of grants, and they might be of some assistance in the writing portion of it, or whatever is required.
Or the matching part.
Well, as Ann could say, when we sat with Steve said there's other funding options available, but you know, it's a question of, again, somebody wanting to put the time in, and of course, you know, we don't have a town planner that would maybe have this type of expertise to do this.
Well, I'd be willing to help you, but I haven't a clue what I'd be doing.
Planning is a good
I'd
suggestion.
help you.
So I am formerly a grant writer, and I do know that you can find matching funds for matching funds. I've done grants where you piece together and it's all kind of up in the air and you don't know if you're going to get it because you're waiting for responses. But if this board wants us to pursue this, I would also be willing to help out with.
What is the board's pleasure? I've got all kinds of hands going up. Susan?
Just, is taking down the bridges something that our crews could do? Give us sort of a
I don't know.
starting point of applying for a grant to replace them if we decided to? I don't know.
There was an issue, I think, a few years ago. I can't remember what it was. Maybe, Phil, you remember, there was a discussion about taking down the bridges. And
again, to go back to Steve Walker, if we took the bridges down, or if the bridges, we lost the bridges in a storm or a heavy tide, he didn't feel that there was an issue with getting permitting, DEP permitting, because the bridge has been there for, I think, close to 200 years. So the fact that there's been a structure there, that wouldn't be a problem. The OST engineering report had what I think Ann and I and Steve agreed was just a horrendously high price to take those down. It was over $75,000. And I just can't believe that now, because from the pictures you can see those bridges are falling down.
Right, right. I knew there was an issue if you took the bridges down. There was an issue, and that was a few years ago when we did the White's Island. We were discussing White's Island.
I just wanted to say, in terms of the match, it looks like you can use a municipal tax appropriation and a couple other things, including non-cash donations of goods and materials and donated labor. And I'm wondering whether taking the bridge down, if we did that, that could be considered part of the match. Maybe
Yeah, like a donation in kind.
Yeah, which could be helpful.
Steve.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask Phil the question about if you do take the bridges down, what does that do to permit? If they get washed out, that's one thing, but if you take them down, does that, I mean, you may not know the answer to this, Phil. Do you would we still be able to get the permit and this? And then my next question is gonna be, what happens on the railroad tracks?
Well,
And I'm all for the bridges, don't get me wrong, but I'm curious about crossing the tracks. Do you have to put any type of mechanism in there to walk over those tracks? Because right now, you go out there, all you got is railroad ties and railroad rails. If you put something in there, you just can't arbitrarily put something in without the railroad's permission. And I think I heard some high figures on that one time, the railroad wanted, you know, for that. But again, these are just, oh, by the way, questions.
Well, let's go back to the first question the first question, which is removal of the bridges. I think we've already addressed that in that there's a history of those structures being there. You also have a causeway leading out to the first bridge, which was, again, put into the town. Some of the earliest maps of the town show where that actually goes through all the way over to Birch Point. But to address the second question, just as recently as last year, Maine Coast Heritage Trust had gotten a waiver from the state that is on file here dealing with the railway. Now, what would the state require as far as a crossing, I can't say. Personally, I think if you're going to make your bridges ADA, that crossing is going to be ADA.
Yeah.
Because what would be the point then of just making the bridges and not the crossing? Now, what that involves, I don't know. These are the questions that, if you want to pursue the footbridges, that have to be answered. If you don't want to pursue the footbridges, take them down, and you're done with it. You've got the island's there, the island's going to go back to its natural state, which is fine. I mean, if that's what you want, I mean, you can still kayak out to it, or, as I said, you know, visit the island if you wanted to. It's entirely up to the community.
What's the board thoughts?
May I say one more thing? Just
Sure.
because it seems important to you all, it looks like there would need to be a warrant article to allow the town to accept or
We
to.
have that.
So you've got, so that would be okay. I didn't want that to be a stumbling block. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Chief.
One piece to add, and I know Phil and I have talked about this. First, let's talk about what Steve just talked about. Over by the yacht club, they cross from their parking lot over to the yacht club, so they may have an answer for you with that piece, how to cross over.
The railroad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
The railroad?
The railroad, where their parking lot is. Secondly, we talked about taking away, after the site visit, at least 10 feet or so of the planks, not the foundation itself, to prevent people from wormers mostly, going out there, crossing out.
Until something was decided.
Until something is done.
Well, I think we need to do something to defray people from going out there and getting hurt.
There is a sign, but
But
signs
they don't
don't
read.
matter. They don't read. Sure.
Kids will do almost anything. So that might be something we might consider doing something to fix it so they can't get to across to the island. Does anybody on the board have any thoughts? Do you want to pursue this?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I personally think putting White's Island back would be a good thing for the town. It would be a good, for visitors to come, they could go out there and have lunch. People are downtown working, they could go out on the island and sit down and have some lunch or whatever they want to do. I think it would be a great idea. I think it would be a good investment for the town. Do I have a selectman that would be willing to work with Phil and Ann?
Kim has volunteered and I have, but
Okay.
she's more an expert.
Kim Anderson will be your selectman.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, I think it's great.
Yeah. That-
I can lifeguard out there when we get it set up.
Well, thank you so much for for listening, really. I appreciate it. I think a lot of it.
Is there anything else you need at this time?
I don't think so. I think we can, yeah, we'll come back when we get more of the information. At some point, the town has to submit this.
Right.
We can't submit it. The town has to sign off first and submit the application.
Okay.
There are a few things that we're going to need from the town, some information.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
So just to wrap this up, to go with the grant, you're gonna need a motion and a vote to give your authority to the Conservation Commission to apply for this grant on behalf of the town.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you, Mary.
EMS Director Toby Martin requests to designate $2,777 from EMS Speedway revenue for future equipment out of taxpayer money. Toby?
So as you recall, in 2016, 2017, we were requested by the Speedway to increase some staffing from 2 people to 4 people. During that time, we had a fixed flat rate for services per weekend, per event, which was $500. Our first year, when we staffed at 4, we gave each individual $125 for the 8 to 10 hours that they were up there. In 2017, because we wanted to be self-sustaining without increasing tax monies for the equipment at the Speedway, instead of paying the providers $125, we paid them $100. And what we did with that $25 from each person is it went back into a general Speedway revenue. And at the end of 2017, we had leftover money that was going to keep accruing and basically continue to support the equipment that we had for the Speedway. As you know, this year we are no longer doing the Speedway, so therefore we're not needing the funding of the revenues that are in that particular account. We didn't do the Speedway this year because of staffing being one of the biggest reasons. They wanted 4 people at the raceway again, as well as the staffing of the 3 people that we were doing here, as well as the increase in the workman's comp. So currently in that account, we do have the $2,777, and the request from the EMS department is to designate that funding that is remaining within that to be able to close the books and potentially putting into another account so that we can carry forward getting equipment without increasing the tax dollars. Now, whether or not, one of the suggestions that I have is to actually put it into the account that we're raising money for, which is for a response vehicle and a community paramedic vehicle. We will be pushing out for the fundraiser here in the next month. We're kind of waiting for the vote for Edgecombe through the subscription plan. So there's going to be a mass flyer out for fundraising for this vehicle. And I'd like to earmark the designation of the $2,777 towards the fundraising of the community vehicle.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Do you have that account already set up?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We've had it for the
All set
last
up.
year and a half or so.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to grant your request to transfer the $2,777 into, what account is it?
It's a fundraising account.
Fundraising account. Yes, Bob?
How much money is in that account?
$2,777.
In the fundraising?
Oh, the fundraising account, we just started with a fundraiser. I think there's $400 or $500.
Less than that.
Less than 500?
Do I have a second on my motion?
Second.
Now we can discuss it.
I was gonna say, I think this is a little premature, as long as we're having negotiations with CLC. I think we should hold off on this.
What difference does it make?
Well, if we should go with them, then we wouldn't be spending money on equipment.
We wouldn't be spending it, we'd just be transferring the fund balance, right? We're not,
Either way, we've got 2 separate accounts right now. Toby, do you want to?
Go ahead.
There's 2 separate accounts right now. There's the EMS Speedway money that's still sitting there, and then there's the EMS donation for the vehicle that Toby is talking about. My recommendation was, why do we need 2 accounts? If we're going to do it, we either need to combine them together or close out one of them and move it into fund balance. And since it already was for the EMS, it makes sense that it would become the EMS donations. If CLC is where our choices go, then that would be voted at some point in time, the board would vote to move it all to fund balance for the general fund. It's just that it eliminates two accounts, creates just, or moves the two accounts into one account for basically the same purpose.
And it jumpstarts the fundraising plan, which will be a benefit no matter who drives the ambulance. You know, it looks good.
No, not necessarily. I wouldn't want to spend money
It's
for
not
CLC.
spending. Well, if we raise money for an ambulance service, then that money's raised. I don't know about CLC or what it would cost or what we would have to pay them, but I don't think he's talking about spending money. He's just talking about transferring from an unused account to one that
Well, that's
we're
the
working
ultimate
on.
goal, is spending money. I don't mind combining them as long as we don't spend any of it until we come to a conclusion regarding CLC.
Well, that's not what he's asking. He's asking us just to make the one account.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
You're not asking to spend the money?
No, I'm asking it to go into one account for future designation, potentially for fundraising for a vehicle for the future.
Because even to take that money out and buy a vehicle, you would need the board's permission anyway.
That is correct.
So that's all he's asking. That's why I made that motion.
Oh, okay, then. Want to make sure, nail it down, things at the way of
Sounds like it's just
changing.
an adjustment to a ledger.
There's been a motion. I haven't had a second yet.
I seconded it.
Oh, you did? Okay, any more questions from the board? All those in favor? Opposed? 4-1. Thank you.
Judy, I just got one more question underneath the department head, underneath EMS. Can I have a clarification as to what we're doing for negotiations with CLC? It's quite unclear and quite confusing as to what negotiations the department is doing with CLC.
Mary? You can answer that one.
At the present time, there have been no negotiations other than what was discussed publicly. The board has never made a final decision on which way they're going to go. Correct, Bob? Yes.
We was waiting for the election.
That's right.
And so they've never made a final determination as to what they want to do, which I think we need to do, regardless of what the board's decision is. You need to make a decision so that the town knows what direction they're going to go in. But at the present time, there have been no additional conversations.
Does anybody else have anything to say on that subject?
You said it's going to be on the next agenda?
10th or 17th.
17th, the 17th. We'll do the 17th. Okay. Okay, treasurer, Bernice, boys, school finance issues.
So before Bernice starts on this, you may remember at your meeting on Thursday, you started talking about school finance issues and kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit trail. So I've asked Bernice to ask a couple of questions to follow up on conversations that came from that meeting on Thursday.
Did you folks receive the letter that we got from Paula Gravel at the State Department?
The email?
The email that we got
Yes.
back from her, yes.
Yes.
So basically, as we have bounced around and discussed, the town of Wiscasset was a school department. It became an RSU. It became a school department again. There's been a misconception that the Wiscasset school is a school district, and it is not. It is a department of the town. We have that in writing from Joanne Allen and from Paula Gravel. Because it is a department of the town, it's at the town's discretion how they want the finances for the school to be handled. And as I had mentioned before, what I've typically seen for school departments is that the funds come to the town, not to the school's checking account, and that everything is handled through our checking account, and then as they disperse warrants, we transfer money to cover those warrants to the school's accounts, which is not how it's handled now. It's handled now just as if they're still an RSU, and we disperse 1/12 of their overall appropriation each month. So we got the information from Paula, telling us that yes, there was a letter that was signed by the previous treasurer, and also an acknowledgement that it was signed by one of the employees at the superintendent's office, which the state was not supposed to accept. It was supposed to be from the treasurer of the town at the time. And they do apologize that that should not have happened. So the question becomes, do we want to continue the way that we're operating now, or do we want to treat them as a department, as the Maine Department of Education is stating, that we would get the checks from the state directly into our account, and we would pay their bills by transferring money to their account. I know that right now, we've only got $1,092,000 in the checkbook, and we have not paid them June's payment yet. It appears last year you folks took out a TAN, town of Wiscasset, us took out a TAN, right after the beginning of the new fiscal year. I'm hoping to not have to do that. I'm not saying that we won't have to, but they've got over $1 million in their account right now. And I'm not sure what they do have for bills coming up. The second issue that was out of the emails back and forth between us and the state was that there is a state statute that says that the school is only supposed to have a fund balance of 3% of their overall budget. With a budget of over $9 million, their fund balance should only be $300,000, and we know that they have over double that. I did send a request to the school's office today to get a copy of what their anticipated revenues were going to be for the upcoming budget, to see how much of their fund balance they used to offset, and I was not able to get that today. I'm told I might get it tomorrow. So the question is to the board, how do you want to handle school finance? Do you want to leave it as it is? Do you want to treat them as a department of the town, which is what they truly are, and handle the finances here, which will ultimately help our cash flow at the town, and potentially reduce the cost of the tax anticipation note and the interest that goes along with it. We paid over $7,000 in interest for the TAN last year, plus the bond council to be able to get the TAN. And it is ultimately the whole umbrella of the town. We're all underneath it.
You have had correspondence with the superintendent's office, I assume?
I have not.
You have not?
I have not. I reached out and have not received information from them.
Okay.
And she's leaving.
She's leaving, okay.
She's leaving the end of the month. The superintendent is leaving the end of the month. I have talked to Shelley.
Okay.
They had concerns, and I tried to dispel those concerns. But basically, as long as we're diligent in making sure that we get information from them, and actually, as you see in the letter, it's also up to the board. If you folks want to be seeing those warrants and sign off them, or if you want the school board to continue doing it the way that they are now. It's totally a board discretion and decision.
Well, I think, as I mentioned that Thursday night when we were having the discussion, I was on the school board back in the 80s, and I can remember it had to be signed by 3 board members, the warrants. And we had to bring them down here to the town. And the town paid the bills, the town took care of everything. We did not have anything to do with it. And I've always questioned why we were handing them, you know, a check of $200, $500, some odd $1,000 every month without seeing a bill.
I mean, they did, the idea of them having their own checking account and their own EIN number is beneficial in that they are cutting their own checks up there, and they are doing their own payroll and their own 941s in that. But the issue that I'm concerned about is us having to borrow money, us the town, whether it be the town or the school under the same umbrella, to keep cash flow going when there's a potential, hopefully, that we would not have to. And again, I'm not saying that we won't have to, but maybe we wouldn't have to the first of the fiscal year at least.
And this is how other towns classify their schools, as a district.
If they are a school department, which we have the wording from the state of Maine that says the Wiscasset School is a department. It's not a district, it's not an RSU, it's not an MSAB.
Okay. Catherine?
Well, I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, we will, and perhaps the public too, will have a better handle on how much it's actually costing us as taxpayers to fund the schools. If we see the bills, we see the whole thing, and what our treasurer has said makes perfect sense.
It's still gonna cost the same, they still have been given the vote of the town to spend a certain budget number. So as far as their expenses are concerned, it's not going to change those any. What I'm looking for is the cash flow.
Kim?
So it sounds to me like this could be an opportunity for us to finally sit down and have a meeting with the school board to talk about this. And I wonder if it wouldn't wait until the new superintendent begins. She starts on July 1st. She has been hired. So we've got new personnel in place. We've been talking, both boards have been talking about this meeting for years. Maybe this is a chance where we could work together. The cash flow thing makes a lot of sense to me. You know, as a person who lives in the town, I don't understand why we're so tight on the town side and it seems less so on the school side, and we should dovetail together. Can we schedule a meeting? And maybe we should start small and have a meeting with Bernice and with Shelley and the new superintendent as a starting point, just to talk about the administrative structure and see what makes sense. I don't know how much sense it makes for the select board to determine what the school should do without the school being a part of the discussion.
But if you read the letter, I mean, they are a department of us, just like the transfer station is a department of us. The rec center is a
I think it would
department
behoove
of
us
us.
all to treat it with some sensitivity so we can try and create an atmosphere of positivity for the town. I hear what you're saying, but I also think that a relationship building is something that needs to occur. I don't believe the town and the school department have a really positive relationship together, and we should endeavor towards that. So I like what you're saying. I think we should try and talk with them and see where we end up.
I just want to caution that you have to be careful of conflict because you work for the school. So just be very cautious of that.
Sure. I'm not an administrator, but sure.
No, but just there are guidelines and regulations about when you should abstain and not. So just don't.
For a vote, can
Yes.
you cue me if I have to abstain?
I will.
Thank
So
you.
just be careful of that.
Thank you.
Ben, I know wanted to say something.
Regarding the school's fund balance, you say that you only have 300,000.
That's what the state says.
Are you suggesting that we can simply absorb the rest of their fund balance? And it
We
becomes ours?
cannot. We cannot. It has to have been, that's why I wanted to get a copy of their revenues to see how much of their fund balance they were using to offset. Because as we know, they didn't ask for more money from the town, and the budget overall only went up by 2-point-something%. So I was wondering if that extra was being used, their fund balance was being used, and I don't have that information to give to you.
I think that was part of it, but not all of it.
Bob?
I just wanted to say that I don't disagree with anything you said. It makes perfect sense, but I don't want this to be perceived as an end run around the school board or the superintendent, and I wouldn't want to make any changes until we've had a conversation that includes this.
Okay.
But it doesn't sound like it has to be done today either. It seems like.
It doesn't, but I will tell you that our cash flow is going to be strained by the end of the month. And we will be having to borrow a tan.
No, that probably runs a little bit of.
We do that every year anyway. But, I mean, I am a little concerned about their fund balance. You want to use it for our cash flow.
I'm not using their fund balance for cash flow. Fund balance and cash are two completely different components.
Then I don't understand why then I don't understand what you're trying to do then, in terms of that.
They've got $1 million in their account.
Yeah.
We're gonna send them another $500,000 before the end of the month. Like I said, I don't know what they're going to have for expenses before the end of the month. But I do know that they've been carrying around $1 million most of the year. And if that $1 million was in our bank account and we were receiving the state subsidy checks that come in each month, and then we were only paying and transferring money over to their account to cover each warrant as it happens, that would increase our cash balance throughout the year.
what happens if they decide they want that money for something? Are we back where we started from?
Money, I guess I'm not understanding. Money is different from fund balance. They still got raised and appropriated X number of dollars to run their town. Instead of us sending them 500,000 each month for 12 months, we're gonna send them maybe 600,000 one month and maybe 200,000 the next month, depending upon what their expenses are.
Okay, I can follow that.
Okay, so that ultimately should help our cash flow.
I think that it's a good idea to talk with them. I think that that makes sense from a cash flow standpoint. I do want to add that they have to pay the summer salaries, and that's around $1 million. So maybe that's what the money's in there for now. But I know that every year summer salaries are an issue, and they can't pay summer salaries. Teachers have the option of having their salary divided into 26 pays, but that doesn't mean it comes out of next fiscal year. So they accumulate that money, and they have to be prepared. They distribute it next fiscal year, but it is collected in this fiscal year.
So as I said, they've had $1 million in that bank account throughout the year.
Something we should talk to them.
So is that a consensus of the board that you would like to meet with the school board before we make a decision on this?
Probably sooner rather than later.
But after the new superintendent comes on. Doesn't make sense to meet with Heather.
When does the new superintendent come?
July 1st.
July 1st.
That makes sense, the books are closed for the year.
So July 1st, July is going to be a busy month.
Or August. Should push something to August.
Thank you,
The
Bernice.
next 2 years, we can.
All right. We'll put that on we'll get a hold of the school board and put it on the agenda within the next month or two. Okay. We have no unfinished business. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong one. Parks and Recreation Director Lisa Thompson, July 4th parade.
So I wanted to give you, everyone, an update on the 4th of July festivities that we have planned. When we first started talking about this last summer, we wanted to do a day-long event and really kind of expand on what we currently offer in the town. And so we started a small committee, we started to meet, and basically what ended up happening was we had a hard time pulling things together for an evening event due to schedules. A lot of people don't like to work on the 4th of July. A lot of the food trucks we were looking into getting either don't have their people work on 4th of July or they are already booked. So instead of doing something halfway, we talked about just kind of doing what we do now and maybe bumping it up a little bit. So what we're planning on doing is we are going to be doing this traditional annual parade, which is going to be at 10. We are currently taking applications for floats. I'm up to 10 now, which is great, including the Wiscasset Middle School Band is going to be involved. I don't believe I've heard from Wiscasset Youth Cheering yet, but I do know they're participating, so we'll make that 11. So it would be great if we could get a lot of floats in this year's parade. So if you are thinking of putting in a float and or know of anybody who is, the deadline is a week from this Friday, so to get that in. After the parade, there will be some awards and festivities going on down at the waterfront till about 1:30. I have not heard on a grand marshal for the parade though as well. I would like to see if there's any update on that.
Just the names that I sent to you that the board had recommended.
Okay. I wasn't sure what to do with that. There was one name that you sent to me and I thought it was at the board's discretion that they would ask that person or choose, and because I don't know the protocol.
So you haven't asked anyone?
Do we have to me to ask them or the board?
Okay.
I don't remember who.
All right.
We can discuss it.
Yeah,
Discuss it tomorrow.
they usually don't talk about it in public because they like to make it a surprise kind of thing and talk to the individuals. So those are the two names, there's only the two
I know that
names that I had.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so there will be some awards down at the waterfront. I'm not really sure how that goes. I haven't really been part of that before, but I know I'm working with David Sawyer on that. Some of the things that we have added are, we're going to be doing a dunk tank that is going to be an EMS fundraiser, and I know that some of you have already been asked to participate in that. And we are going to be hopefully talking about it at the staff meeting tomorrow. So that will be something we're looking for a lot of participation in that. The fire department will be having their annual hot dog sale. The yacht club will be having their strawberry shortcake. And they are participating as an active committee member too. And then the Parks and Rec department is going to do face painting and glitter tattoos. And we are also going to be selling our newly designed Love Wiscasset t-shirts that our summer camp kids will be wearing this summer. And those will be for sale for anybody who would like them. Wiscasset Youth Cheering will also be doing some fundraising down there too. So I think it's going to be pretty busy, and things will go till about 1:30. And then fireworks will be at 9:15 that night. So I do have these lovely posters. I'd like to pass out if anybody in the crowd would like to take one to hang up downtown. That would be great, and I would appreciate it. So I'll be going around downtown to distribute these as well.
Do we have a theme this year, and is there?
Yes, thank you for mentioning it. The theme for the parade this year is Come Together. So, and if anybody would like me to, it's called Come Together, like the Beatles song. If anybody would like me to email them an application for a float, just pull me aside. I can get your email address, or I'll give you my card, and I'd be happy to send you one. There's also should be applications here and at the community center. So, any questions? Would you like one? Yes, Kim.
I started to fill in an application for our select board entry in the parade because she would like a paper for everyone. So can I hand that to her, or do I need to give that to Marion to hand to her?
Feel free.
Okay, and so, we haven't heard back officially, but Marion did reach out to the school board, and my friends on the school board are all excited to help create a float.
Oh, good.
To come together in the parade, and I guess we're just waiting for an official response. But it should be really fun.
And I will let you all know, I was told to make sure there was plenty of candy to throw, and I will assure you there's plenty of candy to throw. It is all sitting in my office right now.
Ben's heard that before.
Yeah, no, you know what?
First year.
Stop right here, I will show you.
Bob, did you have something?
I was just gonna say, can we take care of the marshal? Is that something that somebody can
Yeah.
make sure it gets taken care of?
Yes, yes.
Yes, the paper has been asking me to, so I wasn't really sure what to do with that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we can go on to new business. Review the check disbursement policy.
So you have it in your packet, the check disbursement policy that you approved in November of 2017. And one of the notes that I had made was that you'd like to see it back again when the new board was sitting. So there's no changes need to be made unless you have a recommendation for some changes. But I'm just following through with the direction that you had given me earlier.
Do you need a motion or anything?
No, only if anybody has any recommended amendments or changes to the policy.
No, I don't have any. Does any of the board? Okay, then we'll go to review of board rules of order and procedure.
So this is the board's rules for order and procedure. And typically, it's been your practice, as you can see from the dates, to review this. And if you had any changes to any parts of it. And if you haven't had the opportunity to read through the whole thing, I certainly can carry this forward to the next meeting. But Ben, I thought there was something that you had wanted changed, but I didn't make a note of what it was. and perhaps we addressed it the last time.
Well, I can't think of what I grew up at the moment.
Well, then we probably took care of it. I just,
Well, we did make it, we made a change last November.
we did.
It wasn't particularly our idea, but we did make a change.
Does anybody see any
Well,
changes?
the issue that, I'm looking through this, I didn't have an issue, but the issue that I had was that if it wasn't on the agenda, you couldn't make a motion on it.
Right.
And I just, I already, we've had motions for the things that weren't on the agenda. It just seems like it limits the, excuse me, limits the ability of the selectmen to react to something. But I'm not sure if we took that out before or not. I knew I didn't want to.
I try not to change the agenda as much as possible.
Oh, out of the, that's not.
Do you want to postpone this to another time to get a chance to look it over?
I don't remember reading.
Pardon?
I don't think I read that. But it says we can't make a motion.
I didn't see it either.
Yeah.
It was in it, but
I'd like
I
to read it more closely, I guess.
I think we took that.
Well, it says motions out of agenda or outside of agenda order.
It's just, it's not the one we were talking about.
There's nothing in there about,
But what I took issue to, and I probably did get taken out, was that you could make a motion to take it up, but if that's not on the agenda, you really can't do that either.
Right.
And
I
it
think
just,
that's Robert's rules or something, right?
right.
And that, I don't understand Article 39, which allows us to suspend the rules. I mean, if we choose to suspend the rules, then we can do whatever we want. Isn't that what that means? Well, I mean, seriously, isn't that why that is in there?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, his concern is addressed. Or I think it is.
So just,
Well, I mean, that's standard wording in a lot of things.
Is it something you want removed?
No. I think we actually used it once last year.
I believe we did.
Oh, I like that rule.
it's the old, because I said so.
Is there any changes that anybody want to make?
What was that? Excuse me.
Is there any changes? Do you want to leave it the
No,
way it is?
not at this point.
Okay, Catherine?
No, I think it's okay.
Bob?
I'm good, thanks.
Oh, everybody good?
I'll move we approve the rules and order of procedures for the Wiscasset Selectboard for 2018, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the eminent domain process to acquire an aviation easement to Rocky Campground. Mary?
So as you know, we have been in negotiations with the campground folks to come to an amicable agreement about the aviation easement that we have been in discussion for well over a year. And what I have put in your packet is just all of the history of the letters, of everything that's gone back and forth. And the purpose of this evening is not to make any decisions, but just to review the summary of the eminent domain process. You may remember that the letter that we received from the FAA a month or so ago required that we submit a plan to them, an action plan to them, or they call it a corrective action plan. And so part of that plan, we agreed that we would talk about, we were asked to address the use of eminent domain. It was in the May 15th letter from Mary Walsh. In the event that we do not receive a satisfactory acceptance or counteroffer by the end of May, the board will begin to discuss the eminent domain process. So I'm not here to represent that we haven't come to agreement or that we won't. but just to address the FAA's concern that we have not made the board mindful of the eminent domain process. I'm hopeful that we're not going to have to go through these steps, but it is outlined in the statute. Obviously the board decides to move forward with the process. We have to post it. There is a town meeting vote that's required, and the process is outlined in the 5 steps. So unless you have any specific questions, I feel that putting this on the agenda with all of the correspondence and outlining the process, the town has met their responsibility to the FAA to say that we are mindful that that could be the next step if we are unable to come to an amicable agreement.
Then,
When it says town meeting, does it specify whether it be an open or a referendum?
The town meeting is in whatever format that the town typically uses. You could use a November referendum vote, you could use your annual town meeting, it's whatever that you decide.
But you could do an open town meeting if you wanted.
That would be at the board's discretion.
any other questions from the members of the board regarding this?
Do we have access, now do I have access to the, like the whole history of this, the FAA grants that the airport is receiving? Can I get my hands on those grant documents and read them and see what all the requirements are, just so that I can fully understand what our obligations are as a community to keep that airport open, so I can understand this?
I have the summary of the town has accepted grants from the FAA almost since inception.
So do we have the actual documents? Because those are the rules that you have to follow, and that's what I would love to read that stuff, because you know, we subsidize the airport with taxpayer money every year, and we're talking about potentially like negotiating the removal of trees that will destroy many tent campsites, right? And so and that's an entity that pays us $10,000 a year. So if this damages their business, then they can't pay their taxes, and then those, just like it snowballs. So I feel like I get the FAA says we have to have the airport because we accepted grant money, but I want to read it myself. So if I can just come into would it be here, or would I go to the airport office?
No, they're here, but also I believe you can read it online on the FAA website, all of the rules and regulations. But I have a whole bottom drawer filing cabinet full of FAA material. When you're bored, you are more than welcome to come in and read it.
Can you start with that?
You can. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to see a total. I've asked for that repeatedly, and I've gotten a number of different answers over the years. These grants are supposed to drop off the table after a certain number of years. Some of them may be due, but when the guy from the FAA was here, he said they didn't, and I know I've been specifically told that they did.
I used to be a federal grant manager, and that there's no such thing as the indefinite grant.
Well,
so I would like to see
he was not aware of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the other thing I'd like to add is that the last time that the town clashed with the campground over the easements down there, we reached an agreement and everybody was satisfied. I remember that word because I asked the town engineer, is everybody happy now? And he said no, but everybody is satisfied. The FAA was satisfied, the campground owners were satisfied, and the town had done what they needed to do. The FAA came and changed the rules, and that's why we're back here. If they hadn't changed the rules, we would still all be satisfied.
And if you look at the airport's report, where, you know, it's not servicing a lot of people, and I don't know how many of them live in our town, and it just seems like more reason to kind of get I personally feel like if I'm going to sleep well at night, I really need to understand what we're required to do and why.
It'll be made available to you, and you can come in here any day and look at them.
I have to bring my family so they see me.
Thank you, Kim, for taking on that challenge.
Sure. Why not?
Okay, shall we go on? We have some resignations. Marion?
Well, most of this is old news because the newspapers are so quick in town. But we do have the resignation of Levon Travis, our harbor master, Chief of Police Jeffrey Lang, and Stanley Waltz, our code enforcement officer. And contrary to the rumor mill, they're not leaving because of the manager. I checked twice, so you have the copies of the letters of resignation from all of the individuals. Jeff is here this evening, and you have the harbor masters. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
In Jeff's letter, he said he can offer a part-time alternative position as chief of police.
That will be
Can you tell us
something
more
we will
about that?
discuss at another meeting.
Another thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to take these up together or separately?
It's entirely up to the board how you want to do it. You take them all at once, as far as I'm
I'll make a
concerned.
motion, we accept the 3 resignations that we haven't done.
All those in favor? 5-0.
But let's back up to the other one,
Which one?
the advertising for police chief. I think we should move on that tonight. I can't see waiting around.
Yes.
I'm not interested in part-time police chief or anything. We need a new police chief, and we should advertise.
Have you not already started the process?
I have.
Okay.
It's already been
It
started.
sounded like a hiccup in there, and I just wanted
No.
to show we're moving forward.
All 3 positions are advertised on the town's website in the newspaper, have been sent to the respective organizations that advertise for these vacancies.
Is it a good idea to continue to keep the harbor master under the police department?
I think so. I think that's where he needs to go. I mean, we voted for it.
Well, I know, but in light of how it's gone, I'm questioning whether or not we.
I'd like to,
Yes,
I
go
don't
ahead.
understand how it's gone, sir. Can you explain?
Well, we don't have a harbor master.
Well, what does that have to do with that being underneath the police department?
Well, as you know, I didn't vote for that proposal. I like having the harbor master stand alone. And now that we're at this point, I'm asking if we might want to reconsider that.
I wonder if we were going to reconsider it, could we wait until we had a new police chief and then get input from that person?
I agree.
Well, we need a harbor master.
What I might suggest is that when you interview a new harbor master, you can have that discussion then. The board can certainly make a change at any time. You're not bound to a certain time frame. So, should you receive applications for the harbor master, for all we know, could be a partnership with another town. We don't know what it might be. So you certainly would have the opportunity to address it then if you chose to.
Well, does the ad that we're putting out presently for a harbor master say that you also have to be a police officer?
No.
There's no requirement now.
No, but that's kind of how it did come together.
Then what I'd be pleased to do is give you a copy of those ads, just so that you have them for reference.
Are they really on the website?
They are, but Ben doesn't have a computer at home, so I'm happy to print those
I just want to know where we're at and going forward with this.
Jeff?
There was a member of the waterfront committee here earlier, and she's still here?
She's here.
Susan? Getting input from the actual waterfront committee, who the harbor master gives updates to, may be something that the select board should ask also.
That's a good idea.
Bobby?
Yeah, I just was going to ask, while we're on the harbor master, do we have any update or response on that sunken boat?
If you'd like me to
Well,
respond?
I took it upon myself. I will tell you, I called the Coast Guard station down in Blue by myself, told them who I was. I questioned why, I wanted an answer on why the Coast Guard felt that they were not have any responsibility to that boat because it is in tidal water. I've been waiting since Friday for an answer back, which I have not gotten. So tomorrow it's on my agenda to call again. and to find out exactly, it seems like, I'm sorry, you're getting a runaround. I'm getting a runaround, they're not answering my question. They're sending me here, there, and everywhere.
It's the little person that's, or the entity that's.
Well, I talked to a petty officer or somebody, and he says, I gotta put it up the
Look 'em up in
ladder.
Washington DC.
Yeah.
But we sent a letter.
Yeah, he did.
Did we send it?
Sent a letter.
To the boat owner.
Did you go through the Class E thing, Jeff, or?
The police department and the harbor master, before he resigned, was working with the Maine Marine Patrol, who did get permission from the DA to cite Mr. Morrison for littering in the harbor.
Okay.
At last I know that was issued to him, the citation was issued. To give you another update, the Doug's crew did paint our buoys, warning buoy system out there. Ted Christie has agreed to drop those with some mushroom anchors and to warn recreational boaters.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I thought we was gonna send a letter. I thought the discussion was, and Jeff led the discussion, he wanted it out of there for the 4th of July, which I thought at the time might have been a little unrealistic, but we was going to send a letter that would give him 10 days to remove it.
There was also a letter that we had asked for you guys to send him the bill for Ted Christie putting those buoys out there.
Right.
Oh, we don't have that bill.
We don't have the bill yet, correct.
Right.
And then once we get the bill from Ted, that'll go along with the letter.
Paul, I will follow up on that. I don't have the bill from, what was it, $1,000?
It's $1,000 for him to install two buoys.
I thought it was quite excessive myself, but.
So you guys agreed to send the bill to Morrison.
Well, it does say here that in last meeting minutes, after discussion including the need for an ordinance revision, it was decided to give the owner 10 days to remove the ship. Anderson will research the process and advise the harbor master.
Well, the 10 days would have been up by
10
now.
days
That's
would
what
have been
I'm
up.
getting at, and then we wouldn't have had to spend $1,000 for buoys.
But you also stated that you, Chief, that it's better for the citation to come from a higher authority than the town, correct?
Well, it's better to cite him under state law than an ordinance, because if we cite him as the ordinance, we have to bring in the town attorney, which is gonna cost money to prosecute the case. If we cite him under state law, where the Marine Patrol can do, it's covered under the DA's office.
And he has been cited under the Marine Patrol?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, and you have not heard anything?
Nothing
From
from
Mr.
Mr.
Morrison.
Morrison.
Okay. Yes, Ben?
Well, I would suggest that you should contact the congressional delegation that is federal waters. They may be able to put some pressure on some people.
Okay. Somebody's gotta put some pressure. I mean, I'm gonna call the Coast Guard again tomorrow and see if I can get somewhere.
I just can't believe that all these agencies are just walking away from this.
I agree with Ben. Go just stop what you see.
My God, if you went down and threw a cigarette and butter spit in the river, they'd have you arrested.
Right, how much or what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, it's not safe, it's polluted the river, it needs to be removed.
Okay. Anything else on that subject? Okay. Let's go with peer vendor permit for QT's Coastal Cones. Teresa Gray and Tom Harper. I'll make a motion to approve the peer vendor permit application for GT's Coastal Cones.
Second.
All those in favor?
A quick question, please.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Is this down on the creamery here, or is this over on the other one? I was reading it, I didn't see that it was specified, I missed one.
It's on the record.
It's on the
It's on the,
record.
on the right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, we have bid openings. The sale of the 2003 Ford E450 Type 2 ambulance.
Before you open those, we were gonna have where we had voted to put this out to surplus. Do you have that?
I did.
Yes.
Okay, because I don't remember now.
Yes, we did.
Yep, I found the minutes. I did find it then.
And I couldn't find it in my minutes.
That's okay. I have Kathy, you don't, so.
No, I like the rest of
It was from a March meeting, and I actually highlighted it. It says Anderson announced that the new ambulance will arrive on Friday, March 23rd. She asked whether the board wanted to declare the old ambulance surplus. EMS Director Toby Martin said equipment will be removed from the old ambulance before it is sold. Jeff Slack moved to declare the old ambulance surplus. Vote 5-0.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. And I saw the ad on Lincoln County News. That was good.
So we're all set? And from what I understand, the gentleman that put a bid in the last
No, I
time,
believe you, I just wanted to.
he also bidded this time.
I'm sorry.
No,
2 weeks
no,
ago,
obviously,
when the bids came in and I started to open it, he rebid. So
We have two.
we have 2 this time.
Can we know which one was the old one?
I don't know. I didn't know.
Okay.
This is from Sam Bartlett of Whitefield. His bid is $875.26. This is from Warren Smith of Livermore Falls. His bid is $1,022.
Would you like to?
Yes, please.
We award the bid to Warren Smith for $1,022.
Second.
All those in favor?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Where's the money to be put?
Fund
I
balance.
want to know where it goes, get receipted into when this gentleman brings the money.
Fund balance.
Put it in the fund. Where do you want to put it? Board, where do you want to put the money?
Wherever revenues from, the account would go into,
Yes.
or any other account.
Do we have an account for sale of vehicles?
No, that's part of the reason why I'm asking.
Should there be one?
No,
Yeah,
well,
sale of assets.
Sale of
yes.
assets or sale of
But they
surplus?
don't want it to go to the ambulance equipment that the other money is in.
he's put in the revenue.
Okay, that's,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. (2018) chip seal paving bids. This one is from Allstate Asphalt. Project 1, the Gibbs Road, total $284,926.72.
Excuse me, would you repeat that?
$284,926.72. The old Stage Road, $57,450.24. Community Center Road and Parking Area, $16,617.60. Extra items, $3,045. Total contract price, $339, $185.32. That is asphalt, Allstate. This one is Crooker Construction.
Whilst he's open, can I ask what the 3,000 extra is for?
What the 3,000 extra is for?
That's for a overlay on the sidewalk.
What's the sidewalk?
The connecting the sidewalk that goes from the front door to the cul-de-sac area
Oh, at the community center?
at the community center.
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you.
Project 1, Gibbs Road, $220,711.15. Old Stage Road, $57,687. Community Center Road and Parking Area, $15,120. The extra items, $3,375. That is Crooker.
Where's that all at?
Give a total.
They didn't give me a total on this one. Oh, yeah. All right. I don't have my.
290 something. 290 something.
They have the paper here, but it doesn't fill out. It's not filled out, the contract.
Yeah.
Total.
The total is $296,893.15. $296,893.15. Probably that twice.
There's that one.
Oh, you have more?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not for paving.
No, this one is tree clear. Do you want to do the motions while we're doing this?
Well, I just wanted to ask the road commissioner, the bids on the Gibbs Road are quite different. Would you have any idea why they would be so?
That's a complete rehab of the road. It's they're grinding the existing surface, regrading, getting the shape back to the road, and then resurfacing it.
Well, I know, I was wondering, the bids on that are like $60,000 a car. You know what?
Without seeing what the bids are, I can't answer any questions.
Okay.
I don't know what products are proposed. That is why we've requested that the board would allow Marion and myself to review the bids, and then.
Well, I was just curious because the other three items are pretty much identical.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's something different about the two bids.
Crooker's got a grinder and Allstate asphalt doesn't, so they got a higher one.
No, they have a grinder. I bid hot mix asphalt and not PM wrap. So it'll be all hot mix asphalt, no PM wrap, no chip seal. We don't do that. It's not something I can bid on. In the bid, I give you an alternate. I give you an alternate for Old Stage Road and an alternate for Gibbs Road, where it'll be all hot mix asphalt.
Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Thank you, Doug. I need a motion for the sale of the 2004 ambulance. We didn't make a motion.
Oh.
Yeah, they did. Yes, we
We
did.
did?
Yeah, they awarded it to Warren Smith.
I'm sorry. All right, but we do
She's
need one for the
enjoying it as
paving.
we
Whoa,
speak.
it's past my bedtime, folks. Okay, we need one for the paving.
Move to authorize the town manager and the public works director to review the bids and award them to the lowest qualified.
Seconded.
All those in favor? 5-0. All right, now, this is the 2018 Municipal Airport Tree Clearing Mulching Bid, and we got quite a few of them.
Thank you.
They waited a long time.
This is from Clark's Tree Service out of Phippsburg, Maine, $15,000. Hawks, H-A-W-K-E-S Tree Service.
You said hot?
H-A-W-E-K-E-S, Hawks.
15 even?
15 even. This is from Northern Edge Excavation, $13,800.
The Northern Edge?
Northern Edge Excavation. This is from BPS Group, Brownies Landscaping and Excavation out of Augusta. $21,000. Test my patience. This is from Nathan O. Northrup. He's out of Jefferson, Maine, $7,800. This is from Gary Pomeroy out of Herman, Maine, $9,750. This is just from Chesterfield Associates in Westport Island, $38,000. Can I have a motion?
I'll move we turn these over to the road commissioner and the town manager for approval.
All those in favor? 5-0. Parks and Recreation truck bid.
How many of those do you have?
I don't know. Probably quite a few. This is from Newcastle Ford.
That'd be Newcastle Dodge.
Dodge then, okay, whatever. From Newcastle. 2018 Ram 35,000, Fisher 9.5 XV2, 29,484. You add $496 for spray and bed liner, and $250 for the undercoat, if you want to. And there's a no-cost 5-year, 6,000-mile powertrain warranty on that vehicle.
Really?
And I'll throw the format.
This is from Wiscasset Ford. For 2018 Ford F350 regular cab 8-foot bed, a 9.5-foot yellow Fisher XV2 plow, the lining spray and bed liner, and Enviro Protection undercoating, $36,367. That's
$36,362.
367. That's Wiscasset Ford.
Pardon me? Was there any mention on the Newcastle bid of the plow?
I believe I said.
Yeah.
Yes. There's the price of the truck is $23,719. The plow is $5,765. This is from Yankee Ford. Dealer cost for the truck, $35,739. The plow is $5,625. The Lennox liner is $425. The undercoating is $450. Then they took out $7,100 GPC, whatever that means, for a grand total of $35,139. That is Yankee Ford.
Is that also a Ford F350?
Yes. Yep. First back. Okay, I'll make a motion for the Parks and Recreation Director and Town Manager to review the bids and award the Parks and Recreation truck bid to the lowest qualified bidder.
Seconded.
Just
Yes, sir.
no offense to the park director, but should we ask the town mechanic maybe to be involved?
How about the public works?
Public Works Director,
Okay. I don't
whichever
know.
one.
I'll buy that.
Okay. We'll include the Public Works Director also. in that.
And how much did we set aside for this particular account?
40,000 was it?
42.
42.
42?
Okay.
Okay, I made a motion. Did I get a second?
Second.
Catherine, second. All those in favor? Thank you.
If I might ask, we discussed this a week or two ago, but let's go back to the bids for a moment. If we took the 339, because we put in 375, we'd have 35,000 left. That we would add that to lower the taxes.
That's correct.
Okay, fine.
That was my understanding when we did.
It wasn't mine, but I'm more than willing to go with it, and that's,
It was my understanding that if we did not use that amount that we had in there, that the remainder would go towards lowering the taxes. Yes, ma'am.
There is money left over from the previous year as well in the paving.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that wasn't part of the warrant article.
No, it wasn't, but would that be used towards the bid purchase price? So you'd be actually getting less.
We might be withdrawing less, we'd be using the same amount, correct?
Correct, which would be going towards lowering the taxes, yes or no?
These months.
Yes. I'm sorry?
These monies, not last year's money, that wasn't how the question was written.
Say it again?
Only the current fiscal year's funds.
Right, so if we have a $335,000 bid and we had $35,000 left from last year, we wouldn't draw down.
No, that's 35 from this year.
You're saying we have 35 from last year? As a...
In the paving account.
It should only be like $30 in the paving account. And on
That's
further
pretty
note,
good at spending their money.
this is just the chip seal bid. There are other paving projects that I would like to accomplish, as well as pavement preservation items. I thought I was under the impression that paving budget is actually $395,
Right.
and that I would be able to utilize that money to do as much work as I possibly could within that budget.
Correct.
You're correct. That's
Okay.
what,
This is only phase one of the.
right.
Right.
Okay.
But I
No,
think,
don't worry,
It
Brandon's
gets
supposed to
different than
do
what
your
Ben just
money.
said,
but
though.
Ben was,
Like plans.
but Ben was questioning the truck.
Oh,
That's what he was questioning, was the
Wait,
truck.
I don't like actually
Yeah.
paving, but this is okay. I'm with you.
So after the paving, then you maybe will do other work, and then what we don't spend, we'll get over. And he's all done.
We'll apply for tax.
But whatever we do not spend out of capital goes to lowering the taxes.
Correct.
That's the way the warrant article.
When the projects are complete.
Right.
Oh, this is just the beginning of the process.
Correct.
All right. Are we ready to go on? Okay, streetlight discussion. We have lamp standards on High Street. Susan Blackton. Yes, ma'am.
Susan Blackton. One of the things about which people seem to be in agreement is that Wiscasset is a pretty village. It's not a city, it's not a metropolis, it's a village. On several of the residential streets, the houses are historically important and pretty, and their owners spend a lot of resources and time to maintain them. People come to participate in the Museum in the Streets program, which guides them around so they can fully enjoy our village. Those people stop to eat and shop in Wiscasset, enabling us to be a vibrant and lovely destination, and helping some of our citizens to earn their livings here. Several years ago, people who were interested in maintaining our reputation as the prettiest village in Maine went to a certain amount of trouble to locate and have installed street lighting that was in keeping with the gentle residential streets we call home.
Susan, I would please ask that the next paragraph you curtail one of your words, please.
Who authorized the lamp at the end of High Street, which is much taller than the others, has a huge LED glaring light, and is not the same as the others on the street? Doesn't anyone in the town office have a tape measure? The time to look and replicate? This is not rocket science. There's a lot of talk around about economic development being needed. I posit that unless and until the town starts showing more respect for its assets, economic development will continue to elude us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
If, I take it that they aren't the same height.
Those were taken on High Street from the same distance. One of them is half again as tall as the other one, the one on the right.
If they were the same height, the style of the top is a little bit different, but if they were the same height, would they be all right?
If it was the lower height, yes.
Doug, did you have something to say regarding these lights?
Sure. I think Ms. Blackton ought to read that paragraph in its entirety because I think it's very offensive. To answer the questions, the lights were installed 32 years ago, 1986. Motorists knocked the light over this winter, in December, I believe, might have been a little bit earlier. First, we went with the LED light, because that's the thing to do these days to save money, to have a fixture that lasts a long time. Well, that's, essentially maintenance free. And I believe that's in the theme of the town of Wiscasset these days, to try and, do things for less money and to preserve the whole thing. Yes, we do have tape measures. Many of them actually they're used frequently. Unfortunately, there was miscommunication on what I wanted measured prior to the order. And this is all happening during the winter months of this past year. So, we were awfully busy with snow removal, et cetera. So it took, 3 months were spent on this project. I think I've shown, and you guys might have the packet that I provided Marion, all the emails of my communication with Gilman Electric, who specializes in streetlights. We tried to get the exact street light, but again, 32 years ago, I could not find it, nor could Gilman, even with the information that we provided them from the base. I apologize that the street light is taller. We can either modify it, or we could always bring the other 2 remaining street lights that are really starting to show their vintage. Their illumination is dim due to their old lights. If we're looking for safety on the streets, then of course we want illumination. So I apologize about the mishap with the incorrect size, but it was important to get the street light back up on that corner. I did really try to replicate what was there. So that's my defense and my apology.
Judy, Marion wants to say something right now.
I think it's very important for the board to know that Doug started this process December 15, 2017, and he actually reached out to Crooker and asked them if they could find the information on the light that they put in 1986. I actually have the email from Ian Panett, who said that they couldn't find it. The only thing that they could find he said, I had my crew search for a tag or label, but no luck. The only identifier was on the base Western Lighting Standard. Crooker looked in their archives, and they were unable to find it. So Doug did do that. He also communicated with the vendor, specifically in the emails, and I'm happy to share them, he expressed his importance for it to match what was there. He worked on this project from December up until February 13th of this year. So I certainly don't think the impression that we did it willy-nilly or quickly is a fair representation. So I'm going to try to find where Doug said, my concern is just getting one that closely matches the other existing in order to keep everyone happy. This was in an email January 19th of 2018.
Ben?
I have no criticism of your work, but you mentioned that, maybe modifying it. What material is that?
It's steel.
Steel.
With the powder coat finish. I believe we could get a replacement pole. The fixture, the whole thing that's there is about 3228. I haven't had a chance to look at how the pole goes into, we'll call it the base, the pedestal. But I'm thinking that we can modify it, or if it's more cost effective and doable, to get a replacement post that the lantern would fix on and then would go into the base, if that's possible.
Well, you've got a welding machine, and I can weld. If you want to cut a foot off that, I'll come weld it up.
Right. That's what we're thinking, and we're hoping that we can you know, just take it off the top, and then the lantern would just sit down on that.
So we can solve this.
Yeah, this can be solved.
I got a bucket truck, I'll help you with that.
Hey, just a thought, if we're getting a whole bunch of new 9-foot, 3-inch light posts from downtown, maybe we can just order an additional one that looks in volume discount or something and replace it when we're doing the new street lights in town or something, so. And use it on Bond Street, down at the end.
Yes, Bob?
Mary, did the chap that running with, did his insurance pay for this?
Yes, it did.
All right, so Doug, you're gonna handle that?
I'd like some direction on what the board would like to do.
I'd try and modify it if you can. I think that's where the board's gonna go. Is that the consensus of the board? Try and modify
With the
it?
help you've got.
I certainly appreciate the effort that I'm sure went into that, and I think with a little bit more effort to shorten it, it does look like it's a pretty fair match, except for the height.
Yeah, except for the height.
Yep, the base is I'm surprised that after 30 years it could be that close. And I know the PAC committee just viewed a bunch of the tops, and there's subtle differences that I'm sure just you can't duplicate.
So you're all set, Doug?
Yes.
I would also urge that when replacing streetlights in residential areas, there isn't what you might call a whole lot of foot traffic on High Street at night. And I
Is there
don't
one
think
person
that,
that walks on High
I
Street
don't
at
think
night?
that LED lights are necessary in that one small block. I'm sorry, Doug, I don't. The lights that are there give enough light for nearsighted me to walk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susan. Yes, ma'am.
Would the board like me to change the whole?
Yeah. I mean, are we doing
Does
LED all done?
it have a screw in?
Is it a type of bulb, can you remove that bulb and put a different bulb in?
Well, no, it's not just, you know, bulb for bulb. It'd be, you know, changing the
No.
ballast.
Don't certain LED lights come in different ranges of colors, maybe there's some a little warmer or not so bright light, maybe?
Yeah.
I can look into it and present what the cost would be. The town would like me to do that.
What's the board saying?
Kim.
Yes, Kim?
So I just have to point out that earlier in the evening, we approved the rules of order and procedure for our board meetings, and two of the things that are in this are that we, the board and the public, carry ourselves with decorum and order, and also that we do not present unsigned communications. And so this is an unsigned communication that will become part of the public record that includes an accusatory tone and profanity. Our school children investigate things in the public record. And so, with all due respect, I feel like we should present ourselves with decorum.
Thank you. That is why I asked Susan not to read the entire letter, because I felt that that was not appropriate. And please, Susan, when you do this again, do you mind signing it?
I'm perfectly willing to come up and sign it right now.
That's okay. We'll take it this time. Okay? Thank you. So what do the members of the board want to do as far as the lights, you want to try and find out what it's going to cost to change it from LED to something else, or what?
Well, if Doug was willing to look at it, I mean, it's kind of hard to go any further until he has a chance to explore what it would take to make it shorter. If we're making that one shorter, the cost would be minimal, if any, as opposed to purchasing something different.
Right, but she's talking about the bulb itself, the light bulb.
Well, Doug said he was going to check and see if there was other options available without giving him a chance to do that. I don't want to.
Okay.
I'm sure he will.
All right. All right. You got your direction, Doug?
I do.
Okay. All right. Let us go on. The next one is downtown streetlight. Bill Mahoney, you're on the hot seat.
The PAC met this week. We had a problem with, we presented to you several months ago some landscaping items, and we approved or you approved a street light. When MDOT went to purchase them, they found out that the street light didn't meet the dark skies requirement. In other words, some of the light would go up, and the new requirement has to shine down. So he gave us two options, which the board unanimously picked. You have this in your correspondence. This particular light, it looks very much like what we asked for in the first place. It also matches what Bath has and what is in Hollowell. It is an LED light. They run about $37 a year for electricity, and it all shines down.
They're downwards.
Right.
Okay.
It won't be shining up in people's apartments or anything like that.
Okay.
So we're asking for your approval on that.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the lighting option for the downtown project.
Second.
Anything to discussion?
Can you clarify the height of the poles down for the sidewalks?
The pole itself is 11 feet 6 inches. And then you've got the lighting section on the top. I don't think I've got the total amount.
I think he said
I
about.
thought it was like 13 feet 1 inch.
Yes. I don't have it right.
Yeah, that's where I remember that.
But we recommend on this, it's too low to have banners. You're going to be hitting people in the head. But you can get flagpole adapters and have a banner made to put on the flagpole, which stick up like this and still can be read for special occasions. And you can also, if you wanted to get an attachment to it that holds flower pots, although my experience with that somewhere else is, who's going to water them? They dry out very fast.
Right.
In other towns that have tried putting artificial flowers in it, you can tell it from at 50 miles an hour going by.
I have to ask you a question about the LED, the quality of the light or the color of the light?
That was asked at the meeting the
Yeah.
other night from the state, and they haven't figured that out yet.
Okay, it was put a petition for making it look as warm.
That's what we're trying to do. It's got a, what looks like a light with the lamp and cover, but that's phony.
Yeah.
The light is up above and it shines into that,
Okay.
so it also diffuses it.
Okay, we have a motion to accept these lights, and it's been seconded. Any more? All those in favor?
And then we voted also, Chief Lane had done a study on parking fees and tickets and so on parking. That should be in your packet also. You passed, it's not? Okay.
Not yet.
The package for
Well, it makes a little difference because we're passing it to you without any recommendation. It's nothing that we should be handling, it's something that the board should. And I was going to have a farewell talk tonight, but I guess we forgot to give you a final report. This happened in another town. We redid the master plan and found out that after 4 years of work on the other one, everyone was so involved we never approved it. So it's a common thing. So we'll have another meeting and get a report to you.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, the next item is possible rescheduling of the July 3rd meeting. As you said earlier, I've said it several times, I'm going to be on vacation that week, and so is Marion. I would like it if the board would postpone that meeting to the 10th of July. And I think we've already basically said so.
So moved.
So
I'll second it.
all those in favor? We got our July 10th meeting. Thank you.
Since you already scheduled another meeting before.
I know. I'm following the agenda. Okay, monthly financials, department year-to-date expense report.
So you have before you the expense summary report that has been prepared by the treasurer. As you can see, all of the departments are in good standing except for the contracted services and unemployment. And we know that we're going to have a special town meeting when we have the final numbers in for approval for the contracted services overdraft. I just don't know that complete number at this time, so.
Yes.
So the contracted services, that's the attorney fees? And do we have a breakdown between like the MDOT attorney fees and airport attorney fees?
You have a breakdown for everything. Yep.
I can get that from you.
You can, yes.
I'm just curious.
Yep, yes, oh yeah, anytime.
Maybe when I come to read the airport file.
Sure.
Any other questions on this?
I'll only repeat what I've said many times. Overall, this is a vast improvement over the last few years.
Yes, it
We should
is.
all feel good about that, seriously.
If we didn't have all the legal fees, we'd be in pretty good shape. Yeah. Okay, correspondence from Maine Department of Transportation. Mary?
So this letter speaks for itself. William Holder sent this letter to talk about and address some of the questions that have come up. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but
That's not on this agenda, that was in the folder.
Only the,
no, that should be for
Another meeting.
only I think this does underscore that we need to have somebody there when we walk around, so we'll know exactly.
Yeah.
We'll be on the same page with the state, whether we like what they come up with or not, at least we'll know.
Okay. The last thing is the Fort Hill Street discussion. Ben?
I asked to put that on the agenda because there was, some people had some concern about the curb cut at 31 Fort Hill Street, and I wanted it on the agenda. I was going to make a motion that we not even consider it, but I understand the problem has gone away. Are you, as the property owner, satisfied that the problem has gone away?
As it stands right now, but the way it was explained at the PAC meeting last night, it was shelved for the time being. That's not gone away. So it's.
Jim, could you please stand up? I can't hear you. Could you please stand up?
I said, the way Chief Lang stated that, he pointed out that the Commissioner Rhodes did not have the authority to make the determination to take away a driveway that's currently existing, and that the matter was, for the time being, shelved. That's not a permanent decision, so that's a little disturbing. Otherwise, I'm happy.
Okay. I had a motion, I didn't bring it in, but I can bring it in 2 weeks from now and vote on it. To put it to bed forever, if we need to do that. But I wanted to apologize as a selectman. I thought that you were treated incredibly rudely through the whole thing. I mean, I own property, and if the town treated me like that, I wouldn't be happy at all. Not for a moment. And furthermore, whether it's a driveway or not is silly. That has nothing to do with the criteria for a curb cut. None whatsoever. You can plant flowers up there when you want.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Anything else? We've got the town manager's report.
So, with no objection from the board, I wanted to let you know that we have received the contract with Lincoln County for upcoming animal control services. There's no change in the price or anything. So I plan to sign that unless there's an objection from the board to continue the county providing animal control services. I also wanted to let you know that I received a call from Jack Sarmanian this morning. The town of Edgecombe did award a 5-year contract to CLC for ambulance services. And my question to the board is, you may remember, and I actually have an example, I know those of you that reviewed the warrant tonight saw this bill in the warrant, but when another service provides service to Wiscasset because there's a reason that we can't respond, we receive a bill. This happens to be the one we received from the city of Bath, and it's for $270. And we receive them, you've seen them in the warrant anytime they have to respond. And it seems like a reasonable protocol for us to do the same to a community that we no longer service. And so I just wanted to bring that up to the board to discuss it. Should we be called to respond to Edgecombe and we no longer have a service, that we would send them a bill just like we receive when someone else has to support us. So I didn't want to do it without at least, I know you guys look at the warrant, you see that we pay this regularly when we can't staff a call. But I see no reason why we would not pass that cost on to the town of Edgecombe.
Would you want a motion?
I would like one, yes.
I was going to ask for the wording and I'll make it.
Toby, what's the term of art? What they, I mean, I just
Do
call
we have
it.
to determine amount?
Yes. I'm asking you for the amount the city of Bath charges us.
So this seems to be a national trend for subsidies when contractual subsidies from one community to another community break off because they decide to go with another vendor or another EMS subsidy to cover their towns. I can tell you that, you know, one of the things, there's kind of two trending offers. One is to set the rate high enough so that it helps collect with the uncollectibles. Because when we go into another community, we're still going to have uncollectibles. So that's the first option. The other option is to keep it fairly minimal for a price that you're charging the community that you're responding to, but at the same time hold them responsible for the uncollectibles that we may not get for that particular transfer. This has kind of been a precedence all around the areas. I can tell you that there's a broad range in what people are charging. When there was a tie and we took over subsidy contract with the town of Dresden, there is a letter that was sent from Gardner Rescue to Dresden that their calls would be $500 and that they would also be responsible for the uncollectibles for the transports. So you've got to have to kind of set a rate as to where you want to be and whether or not you want that charge to be for uncollectibles as well. My next second thing that I would say to this is are you going to be charging CLC or are you going to be charging the town of Edgecombe directly? The trend is typically you charge the town that you're responding to. We do charge currently right now, we do charge a rate to Woolwich. Anytime that we go to Woolwich and that we're canceled in Woolwich transports, we charge them currently $200. We do not charge from mutual aid to Woolwich for Northeast because there's been a contract prior to my existence here in 2016. So it's something to think about where you want to be if you want to charge for EMS contractuals if we go mutual aid to the town of Edgecombe, and whether or not you want to have the uncollectibles picked up.
You want to put that in the form of motion? But
My thought's much simpler. I don't think that we should charge for mutual aid if there was a catastrophe or a severe accident, such as I have experienced where 3 ambulances show up. I don't think we should be charging for that. But I do think when their provider cannot respond and we do respond, my thought is the city of Bath bills us $270. That's where we should start, and we should reevaluate it every year. And we should bill the town of Edgecombe.
Bill the town of Edgecombe and the uncollectibles. They should be responsible for the uncollectibles.
Does Bath bill us for the uncollectibles, Toby? I've never seen a bill for that.
Bath does not bill for our uncollectibles. But that is the trend that's happening.
The guy that rescue was charging $500 plus.
That's Gardner Rescue.
This is a city of
Yeah, I
Bath
know,
invoice
but the guy that rescue was charging $500.
to Dresden.
Correct.
Plus
And,
uncollectibles.
yeah, because you told me that here a little while ago.
I'm going to support the manager's recommendation about, you know, in my eyes as your director, mutual aid is when you have a significant event where you require more ambulances. And when you go to other communities and it's because of a need and having a multiple injury type of situation, I totally agree we shouldn't bill. However, we shouldn't be offsetting another service who may be doing a transfer, which is where you make the money, doing a long distance transfer to Portland and subsidizing having to cover a 911 call when we're only making a fraction of that cost back. I think that needs to be really looked at, and I totally agree with the manager's, you know, recommendation about it being a larger event where mutual aid is needed because of multiple patients.
So I guess the question before the board is, do you want to go with the 270 like the city of Bath bills us, or somewhere in between? You know, I mean, I just thought this was a good place to start. And certainly we can reevaluate it every year, but you are correct, Bob. Gardner does bill Dresden 500, so it's your decision. But I do think we should bill the town, not that.
Of course, town's responsibility.
Do we have to have some sort of agreement with them to do that?
No.
Well,
We don't
okay,
have
but
an
maybe if
agreement
we
with
bill them,
anybody
so
that
guarantee
we
they're
can
gonna
do
pay
that.
us either. Is there, I mean, how does that work?
You're correct, but the city of Bath, we don't have an agreement with them either, but we pay them. It's kind of, it's an honor system. I mean, if another municipality services your municipality, you know, it's.
I'm just asking a
No,
question.
no, it's a fair question. It's a fair question. But you're right, there's no guarantee that we would pay. We have always paid because we want to make sure that if we are unavailable, our residents get the service they deserve. So we appreciate that Bath will come.
So, do you need a motion?
Yes.
270?
That's what Bath charges us. Yeah, you told me, I mean, do you have any, I mean, to me, that seems like a good place to start. Do you think that's, I hate to say it's low because if Bath is watching, your bill's gonna go up, but.
Well, the thing about this is the national trend that the uncollectibles are not helping smaller communities. I can tell you that the next couple towns over, the town of Rockland is responding to a lot of outlying communities, and they're charging $800 for mutual aid. So it is a national trend, and there's a lot of variations right now. Currently, right now, we utilize Booth Bay as our primary mutual aid. Booth Bay does not charge us for mutual aid, but if we do an ALS intercept, and that rate is $150. So it's across the board. I heard just yesterday that the city of Bath charges BIW for an ambulance, and they charge $1,000. So I don't know, I have not confirmed that number, so there is a broad range. It's, you know, setting the rate and deciding what you want to do, the uncollectibles is what you're going to have to make a choice on.
As far as, let's say we went to Edgecombe for 10 different times, would the price that we charge to go over there basically be the same every time?
Yes.
If you set a rate, the answer would be yes, after July 1st. It would be, if you set a rate of $300 per call, it would be $300 every time we go there. If CLC decides to call, or if Edgecombe calls us because CLC is on a call and they're delayed, it would be $300.
I guess what I'm wondering, if you went, the ambulance went from Wiscasset, just basically speaking, it would be the same, it would cost us the same every time, basically.
To run the ambulance hourly right now, Chairman Ryan, it's about 260. I'm sorry. It's about 260 or so. So, you know, it's, once again, it's not going to change the operations here. It's just, you don't want the uncollectibles to offset what we're doing over there, and that's what geared us to change our rates for subsidy. So, you're not gonna be making much if you're only gonna be charging $270, and you set that bar as a board as to what you wanna charge. And if you wanna charge, you know, $200 and the uncollectibles, or $300 and no uncollectibles, you know what the rates are. In the past, I've given you the rates of what the uncollectibles were for that community, but most of those were based on 119 calls that they were doing per year.
But since we have no contract, we could change that every other month if we wanted.
You can reevaluate it at any time.
Yes, Jim?
Could I make a suggestion? Since there's different response times to different communities, and if you've got a set fee of which your hourly rate is, then you need to calculate out at minimum the to and from and some time in between for a specific community, figure out the percentage rate of the uncollectibles for that community, and that's how you develop your billing.
So what I was gonna suggest is that, are we allowed to make a motion that we authorize the town manager and the EMS director, whatever Toby's title is, to set a rate card based on geographical
No, that's a
regions and
board
bring it
decision.
back to us?
They can look into it and suggest something.
I mean, it seems like
Final
if it's gonna
decision
be
is the board.
$270 doesn't make, I don't wanna just pick a number out of the sky.
Well, but remember that this is the cost to respond, and then if we transport, we get to bill for that service. So if I'm in Edgecombe and Toby's kind enough to pick me up, he can bill them $270 plus he can bill my insurance for the service that he provides. So,
That is correct. Only one transporting service can bill for a patient transport. And in reference to the public comment, remember that calculation is fine if we had a contract with him and we knew how many calls we were gonna do per year. Like, I could calculate that out based on the years that we've done in the past of being over 100 calls, somewhere between 108 and 119 calls. But remember, we no longer have that contract, so therefore the calculations of how many times we're gonna go to Edgecombe is gonna be skewed in order to do that formula. So that's the problem with trying to do it mathematically and doing it via data and do it via formula, is as of July 1st, we're no longer doing transport, so we're no longer guaranteed to do 109 calls in Edgecombe, and we don't know how many we're gonna do, if we're gonna do any at all. They could decide to subcontract out with Booth Bay for a response at a Booth Bay to cover CLC, because Edgecombe may not be happy with a reply that they could possibly be receiving tonight by a letter from the board's suggestion. So,
Did you have something?
Well, I was gonna suggest that, Marion had said that this amount, whatever we decide on, can be changed at any time, and that perhaps we ought to just, try the 270 or 250, whatever amount we want, that's somewhat reasonable, that's not that far away.
But I
And,
definitely, I feel they needs to be included, the uncollectibles. Then the town of Edgecombe has to be responsible. I don't think we should be responsible for the
No, I don't think we should be
uncollectibles.
either, I totally agree with that, but I think we ought to just pick a number and include that and try it and see how it works, you know, numbers wise, and if we want to change it, we can change the
Like Toby
amount.
said, we might not get called at all. You might get maybe 4 or 5 calls a year. You never know.
I just have one other question. I feel like if this had been an agenda item and there was information that we could read and study up on, I could give you a better idea. But this is the first time I've heard about it, and I'm new at the board, so I don't know. Not that I don't want to say like we can't make a motion anytime, but this is the type of thing where I feel like I could be better prepared for this discussion, and I feel like I'm not. I mean, I'll go with 270, but if it's possible in the future.
well, I appreciate the comment, but we just found out this morning. As I said, Jack Sarmanian just called this morning, so that's why I was bringing it to you. If you don't want to make a decision tonight, you certainly don't have to, but,
I'm happy to, I just don't know what you want for wording. I think the 270 sounds reasonable, like we've all said, because we can change it at any time if we think it's not correct.
And to include
Plus
the
the
actual
other
budgets.
collectibles.
Yeah, all of that, but I just don't know what the wording of the motion is.
So moved.
I'm in favor of it, yeah.
Just authorize the town manager to just do what we just discussed.
It's been
Second.
moved and seconded by Bob.
What?
To set the rate to respond to the town of Edgewood in the amount of $270 plus uncollectibles. And we agree that we will not be billing if we are responding to an incident which is usually a catastrophic event or
Multiple injuries.
multiple injuries. Thank you.
Just Edgecombe?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just Edgecombe?
Yes. Okay, all those in favor? 5-0. Okay. Anything else?
Just wanted to bring to your attention, I know that you've seen it, and the property owner spoke earlier, but you do have correspondence in your box from Michael Dunny Antiques that she dropped by the town office. And she actually had the opportunity to speak to about other issues, but she did bring a letter into the office. So I wanted to make sure that's...
It's not in here.
No, she just brought it in, so I just wanted to make sure that you saw it in your box and that it will be added to part of the record. And that was for 49 Mill Street. As you know, we often work on improving the town's website, and not that any of you are looking for work, but if you have the opportunity to look at the town's website, we have added a new tab at the bottom for employment, and there's where we will be listing all current and future opportunities within the town of Wiscasset. You may remember, for those of you that use the website, you used to have to go to a couple of steps to get to where those were. So we worked with our vendor and we're able to put that employment tab at the bottom of the first screen of the town's website. So if you have time, take a look. And if you're looking at the website, board members and any members from the public, and you have suggestions on things that you'd like to see different, please don't hesitate to communicate those. We work with our vendor on a regular basis, and we always want to make the website as user-friendly as we can.
Okay, I just want to remind everybody, our next meeting is July 10th at 3:30 in the afternoon, where we're going to take a look at the parking and then take a walk downtown. So everybody's on. Yes, Toby?
Madam Chair, I think you've set the date for July 17th to discuss the potential negotiations or contract with CLC. Is that the correct date in July?
Yes.
I am on vacation that week, and I would like to know if the board could potentially move it back a little bit more. I think it's important that the director for EMS be here to discuss the negotiations.
What's the board's pleasure?
I have a question.
Yes?
Is this meeting that we're having with CLC, is it appropriate that the Wiscasset EMS director participates? Or because it is sort of a, I don't know what you want to call it, I'm just asking if that's
I thought
appropriate or not, I don't know.
the next meeting was just for us, for the board to decide whether we wanted to continue moving forward. So there won't be any negotiations to speak of. It's just
Right, I forgot.
whether we want to go forward.
Is that at a regular select board meeting, is the July 17th?
Yes. Yes, Ben?
Toby, I don't know if the word to use, the subscription that people can sign up for, are those going to be going out before the 30th?
We have been holding off for the subscriptions to be mailed out because we were unsure of whether or not we were going to do subsidies for Edgecombe. So we have to just tweak our subscription application to take out Edgecombe. Now that we know that Edgecombe is not going to be a part of it, they'll go out to print within the next week.
Okay, thank you, because I had some people
Yep.
who want to be sure they can re-up. And you want more?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I apologize, I would usually do this at the beginning of the meeting, but I would ask that when we do adjourn tonight, we do so in memory of the late Bill Cumming.
Oh, definitely.
He was the principal of the high school for 22 years, and he was a decent guy, and he helped a lot of kids, and Wiscasset is better for him having been here.
Thank you, Ben. Good. Anything else? Yes, Tom.
I didn't get an answer, I was just wanting to know if I was gonna get an answer. Are you gonna have a discussion on the 17th, or just to say yes or no to move forward?
Yes,
Because
we'll move forward.
Okay,
So you don't have to be here.
okay, thank you.
Have a good vacation. Okay. Can I have,
Just one other
Yeah.
short thing on, I'm just looking at the upcoming meetings, events on June 26th, that Public Safety Advisory Committee meets, and it's not in the list. Should it be in the list?
It should be, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So you guys want to come to that meeting, 5:30?
all right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? We're done.